Good morning. How are you? Well, first and foremost, I am of Mexican descent, and I am so proud. I always say I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room, but I'm going to be sitting by them. And I'm going to be looking to sit by you. I got into an elevator the other day and freaked out because I have claustrophobia, so I could never do that. So there was a whole other intentional moment going on there. Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Martinez with ESPN. I get the luxury and the privilege of working at the Walt Disney Company, which is owner of ESPN. And we focus specifically on using the power of sports for social good, which these two amazing people are doing as well. Just a quick little advertisement. I didn't bring a sizzle reel or anything like that, but our focus is to create access to sport for youth, right? Kids are dropping out at huge rates. We want to make sure they have the same future. How many of you went to high school? How many of you had a team in high school? A mascot in high school, right? Come on, all of you had a mascot in high school. So my point is everyone is really a sports fan. It's where you find your sports fandom. And so I just want to say that what sports does is uniquely brings people together. When you come to Chicago, this great city, you know what the Cubs are, right? You know what the Blackhawks are. You know what Chicago Bulls are. That's what sports does. And so I challenge all of you as we go through this to think about this as it relates to our guests and the great work that they're doing, is remember that no matter what you're doing, the great community affairs teams, the media organizations, the leagues, the people, the owners around this are ascribing to creating community. And so that is the most important thing. It's not butts and seats. It's about creating this opportunity to create community and to be about one thing, which is your team, your fandom. So that's what I love when I do this work. And so I just wanted to share that with you. But first, let me introduce a couple of amazing people. So Beth Swanson is the CEO of A Better Chicago. Beth, I'm going to ask you to describe what that is in just a second. And then Danny Wirtz is one of the owners of the Blackhawks. So we get a perspective of an ownership, but also what that means in community, like fundamentally how it means that you're grounded in your community. But Beth, I'm going to start with you first. Could you describe what A Better Chicago is and what it does?
Sure, thanks. So A Better Chicago is Chicago's venture philanthropy in town. And so what we do is we raise and pool money, and then we invest that capital in what we believe to be the most highly effective, high-impact nonprofits, youth-serving nonprofits specifically in our case, and help them scale and grow over time. So we do that in two ways. We both give unrestricted grants to all those nonprofit leaders, but then we also come in with additional resources, pro bono help, expertise, internal expertise, additional dollars to help them with management support and capacity building as they try to scale their work. Because we know every leader is going to bump up against those challenges, and what we try to do is wrap support around them aside from the dollars, but to really help them achieve their goals.
So I think what's important here is remembering that sometimes sports is put over here, entertainment is put over here. They're industries, right? They're journalism, they're media. The next technology for direct-to-consumer is going to come from media. But they're also very much a sector. So how you enter into them and what they do for community, how they work together and collaborate in a philanthropy and social justice and social innovation are very, very important. So Danny, tell me how you guys work together and what was intriguing about the partnership.
Sure. So like about 5 years ago, as an organization, we were at a bit of an inflection point. I think our philanthropic efforts, we sort of jokingly called it confetti philanthropy, just sprinkling a little love around town, as you would expect from a sports team. But we saw a real opportunity as we wrote a new strategic plan. We brought a new executive director in, Sarah Goodrian, and we decided we wanted to go deeper. We wanted to have deeper impact, deeper versus wider, be more strategic and more aligned with our business and the communities we operate in and the partnerships that we have. So that leads to finding the right partners. And A Better Chicago was the perfect complement where we could leverage their expertise, their ability to capacity build, their ability to analyze and to identify emerging leaders in the community, and then leverage the power of sports and the power of the Blackhawks in our case, where we have tremendous platforms to share the stories of what's happening in the community, to share these emerging leaders and what they're doing to make impact. And for us, it was about specifically the west side of Chicago, our home. So we launched in 2020 One West Side, which identified 5 leaders doing the work in those communities. And 4 years later, here we are, and seeing the work, which I'm sure Beth will talk about some of the impact, and we're really proud that that strategy that we launched 5 years ago is now really starting to pay off, and it's done in partnership with Better Chicago.
You guys, so I hope and pray every single day when I go to work that I'm going to be working with someone who believes in what I believe in, empathy and giving back. And so when you meet an owner that is committed, that builds from the infrastructure, from the ground up, their team to give back, it's not an anomaly anymore. It's kind of the basic precedent, and it's not subtle anymore, because having leadership to be able to do that allows for these intersections that allow for us to be able to celebrate gay pride, in June or Juneteenth or whatever it may be, because they also believe. So they're catalysts of your community and philanthropy. So thank you for bringing that and infusing the team with that. So I went to my second hockey game just about 2 weeks ago at the Rangers. Wasn't the Blackhawks.
Original 6, all good.
But I was amazed at the fandom and how crazy it was, but the ownership in Madison Square Garden about what they do as well. My point is their CEOs and owners, just like corporations, it trickles down. It all trickles down. Leadership trickles down. Beth, so we talked about KPIs and impact. Tell me a little bit about what you're measuring and how you're measuring it, what's working.
Yeah, sure. We were thrilled when the Blackhawks, just shared. Our values were just so aligned from the beginning. And we already had the apparatus built, right, to do the philanthropic strategy and investments. So when we started off, we were looking for, and I should say that we as an organization organize our investments around funds, and we do it from early stage organizations to most mature organizations. So not like other foundations who might do it on topic, education, employment, climate, et cetera. What we do is we organize around the maturity of the organization, because we find no matter what topic or intervention you're working on, you're often at the same challenges in growing your organization. And so that management support and capacity building can be targeted to where you are in your maturity.
Can I ask you a question about maturity? Just
Sure.
the word that. Do you mean as it means depth of understanding or years? Or?
Yeah, years and sort of infrastructure, I would say, built. So in this case, the One West Side organizations are our catalyst. You just used the word catalyst. They're our catalyst fund organizations. And that's our earliest stage. So we have a visionary leader. We've got some early proof that this organization has the ability to scale and grow. They're starting to collect data, but they might be off traditional radar screens for investment. So we brought in seed investment there. The group of organizations were only supporting a couple of hundred young people at the time. They've now grown that to 1,000 young people on the west side. We are seeing increases in engagement, participation, completion. So we know we have more and more kids on the west side engaged in those in-school, after-school, weekend hours, summer hours, which are so critical to their development. We're seeing increases in GPAs across all participants. We're seeing, for those who are working age, we're seeing employment rate, attainment rates increase. So we know it's taking hold and starting to have those youth outcomes we really reach for. The other thing I'll add is that we also see organizational outcomes starting to emerge, meaning the infrastructure is strong, revenue is up. In fact, we've seen a 74% increase in fundraising revenue.
Wow.
And in 2022, that looked like $1.5 million additional dollars to those organizations. So that's another part of our partnership, is we try to take our platforms who reach many, many more people in the city and nation, amplify what's working, and drive additional revenue to those organizations so they can grow their impact even well beyond our own resources. And we're starting to see that take root.
That's amazing to me. I mean, what measures matters, right? Until it doesn't, right? Because someone else comes in and says, well, I have a different measurement tool, or I have a different expectation. So setting a strategy that allows for your organization to have these aspirational and also tangible goals and ways to collectively get them requires like systems and programming. So I just want to assure you, we do it similarly, but the opportunity here is to get thought leadership into sport and to do dynamic and changing, because we have an audience that is in a stadium or in a field or somewhere that they're listening, right? They want to be part of this collective being. These systems that you put in place, like measurement tools, is there one specifically or that you
we do that with all of our organizations and then our overall portfolio, but we also recently launched what we call the Youth Opportunity Dashboard that goes beyond our work. I think we have a great partnership. We are making some terrific impact on the West Side, but realizing the scale and size of the challenges in Chicago and for Chicago's young people, we felt like we wanted to take that further. So what we built out is a citywide tool that tracks 26 indicators across cradle to career for the city of Chicago. And we did that in partnership actually with our friends at the Obama Foundation. We organized that around the 6 key milestones around My Brother's Keeper initiative. And then the 26 outcomes roll up to those milestones. And so now the city can see by 77 neighborhoods how we're performing. Are we a city that is really helping young people thrive in Chicago? So we looked back 5 years, the trend data. So now we have data, again, from early childhood access to high quality early childhood, to third grade reading, to early indicators into career and attainment and for employment. And we can really start to have a conversation with a fact base as a city, beyond just what we're doing or what we're doing together in partnership, because we're going to need many, many more resources, much more investment to really drive the outcomes we all want to see.
So Beth was also telling me, which I did not know, that she worked with Rob Emanuel in the mayor's office in education, in that space?
As Deputy for Education and Youth.
So this type of thought leadership is amazing when you can be able to move it into these other types of sectors, which we see a lot in the sports space, whether at the NFL and there's ownerships there, or NHL, et cetera. But this ability to understand your community and to own it and to be able to kind of see what thrives and doesn't thrive in it, to hear from you all because you're working with them and funding them, and to see them firsthand. I know it seems 101, but you'd be surprised on how many organizations that I work with that can't give you a dialogue about the broader concept of philanthropy and giving across their community, right? So the depth of that is really important, and I would imagine important to you for, Danny, for the basic fandom, right? Like getting people to understand what your team is about, getting to come to the games, but also being able to speak to them and talk to them about what's important to them. I'm just curious. I'm a futurist. I'm living hopefully 6 months in advance because I'm trying to figure out what are going to be the common denominators we're all going to have to work with. In that line of thinking, what do you think about for the future in this type of role and this type of community and investment and impact? Where do you see it going in the next decade?
Well, I think our organization is almost 100 years old. We're going to celebrate our centennial in a couple of years. And I'm the 4th generation of our family to steward this organization, and I use that word steward very deliberately, because I think when you're a steward of your company or your brand, you take care of it. You take care of those around it. And I think I was always raised why it just was ingrained as you do it because it's the right thing to do. I think we're probably going to move into a state of more intentionality where it's more than just doing it because it's the right thing to do. It actually is an imperative, and it's part of our brand, and it's part of who we are as an organization and as a brand. And when fans see the Blackhawks, they see us not just as a hockey team, but a contributor to the fabric of Chicago, which of course includes our role in the community. And so when you think about the West Side and you think about the things we do, it is about the programs like One West Side. It's about our sister program also, Support West, which is more of a business-oriented, entrepreneurial and small business support system. So those two programmatic things become important pillars around our organization. And then the other piece is investment in space. And you can imagine, like any sports team, we need facilities. And it was several years ago when our GM came to my dad and said, "We need a new practice facility." And he, asked how much that cost, of course, and then he asked, "How much do you actually use it?" And the number is shockingly low in the grand scheme of 365 days a year. And he said, "Well, I have a better idea. why don't we do 2 sheets of ice and we open it up to the community? And that became kind of our North Star for what we do just a few blocks away from the United Center. So now the Fifth Third Community Ice Arena not only is our elite training center for the Chicago Blackhawks, it is a community hub. We welcome thousands of kids from CPS and the surrounding areas for on-ice activity, off-ice activity, leadership skill building, everything from community bingo for the seniors to public skating for the kids, and it becomes a really important piece of our overall campus on the west side there. And we just announced recently that we're actually going to double up again, add 2 more sheets of ice, more facilities, and again, even the learnings in the last several years around what the community really wants and make sure we design spaces to meet the needs. So really ingrain what is a bit of an anomaly on the west side, an ice rink, and make it something that's accessible and exciting for the youth of Chicago.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Ice is expensive.
Yeah, I don't recommend everyone jumping into
not just the footprint, but keeping it nice and cold. And also, I'm going to give accolades to the Blackhawks and also to the NHL for their diversity initiatives. Really diversifying hockey, which it has not been for many, many years, but doing incredible work in that space. Beth, what do you think future holds? Give us that progress.
Yeah, well, I think this type of cross-industry collaboration is going to be absolutely key in the next 10 years. And I think that us together, we've invested $3 million already in the One West Side in these programs, and it's only going to grow. And I think things like, like I mentioned, the citywide tool to start this conversation, I only have hope and optimism that more people will get in the game, more people will help, drive these youth outcomes. Of course, in addition to the Blackhawks dominating the NHL over the next decade, I have to say, yeah. But I really do think if we do drive this investment and invest in these social entrepreneurs that are embedded in community, most proximate to these issues, we see it works. And if we can do that over the next 10 years, we can lift 100,000 young people out of poverty in Chicago.
Fantastic. Who's from Chicago here? Raise your hand. Okay, you just heard that. So they're looking for these great seminal kind of catalysts in community to make sure that those things can happen. And so I get the last word, which is great, but I'm going to give you a little prognostication. Is that what it's called? So I think that there's going to be this intentionality that's going to bring people together, but there's also going to be something that I call cooperation, that there's going to be organizations that are different or even competed against each other. They're going to have shared values. They're going to move things forward in ways that we haven't seen, because we're going to have to double down to get what we need done. And people are going to really care, because leaders are going to demand that us to be qualitatively different, efficiently different, using resources much more efficiently, but also being very using innovations we've never done, which is why we're here at the summit. So great kudos to our panelists here. Thank you very much. So glad to be here.